welcome Clarence Maximillian and Siddharth Nadkarni with Maximillian Studios.
Hi, guys.
Wow. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning, guys. Wow, it's great to be here to see all of you guys. And, we've got a lot that we want to talk to you guys about. But of course, for those of you guys staying till the end, there's also something very special that we'd love to show you. So stay tuned. Let's get started. So my name is Clarence. I do a lot of the creative direction for all our games. And I also handle the studio's foresight in terms of where we're going to go. And we gather in all the amazing talent from across the world together so we can help make the vision come to life too. And today, I'll be accompanied by...
So hi, I'm Sid, and I'm the audio and music director at Maximillian. I'm really excited to be here with you guys.
So if you guys need cool beats for your games, you guys know where to go to. So for those of you guys who don't know who we are, we're Maximillian Studios. We started around 7 years ago as a small group of 3 people, including myself, Sid, and a guy named York, who actually became a great engineer here at Roblox. And like many of you guys, we've been on the platform for a really long time. And so we love the lightheartedness and the quirkiness of Roblox games. But as we got older, we realized that we really wanted to blend the quirkiness with something a bit more complex, something more immersive that had like a cinematic tone to it and proper world building that you often see in the movies. And of course, growing up on Roblox, we felt the need to make one. And looking at the vast landscape of Roblox at the time, there wasn't really a title that we could find that matched that description. And being taught at a young age by playing Roblox, we felt like we had to make one ourselves. And so over the next 6 months, we spent every waking hour making what some of you guys may know of as Operation Scorpion. We used every success, every failure, every skill, and every experience from building a title into building what many of you guys know as Frontlines. And of course, thanks to Roblox, its amazing suite of tools, its engine, and its no cost of entry, we're able to start our studio with little to no cost. And thanks to many of you guys, the Accelerator program, the Game Fund, and the amazing people here at Roblox, we're able to grow our team from a small group of 3 people into a studio of over 30 people, creating titles like Frontlines that has amassed over 52.5 million plays over just the previous 6 months. And thank you. And not only that, Frontlines has been played worldwide by thousands of people in different countries of different backgrounds every single second. And so I'd like to just take a moment and thank all of you guys for the success. And of course, I also have to shout out our Korean players for keeping our game so lively by dominating the top charts every single night. So props to them about that. But what I find most profound, and I think many of you guys will find too, is that out of our 52.5 million plays, almost all our players are over 18. And within that demographic alone, almost all of them came from off-platform to check out Frontlines for the first time ever on the Roblox platform. And so what that signaled to us was that a high-fidelity game wasn't only possible on a technical level, but there's also a huge market for it. And so today, I just love to talk to you guys about how to create new experiences to reach new audiences, and also how we're able to achieve what so many people thought wasn't viable, even impossible for the Roblox platform. So let's just dial back a bit and talk about Operation Scorpion. So when we first started Operation Scorpion, we adopted a new kind of workflow that was quite unique to the Roblox platform at the time, which was to use off-platform tools like Adobe Suite, Blender, Substance Painter, and did whatever we did there and ported it over to Roblox. As the tools evolved and we started working on Frontlines, we adopted the same workflow but in greater depth, utilizing many of Roblox's greatest technologies like PBR, and future is bright to mimic the high-fidelity look that you often get in AAA experiences with its realistic textures and atmospheric lighting. But of course, like many of us here, we understand that every engine comes with its own limitations, and that every imperfections that we have in our creations are often highlighted when we don't do things the right way. So how do we solve for that? What did we do? Well, what we did was we went back to the basics. We spent a great deal of time honing in on proper technique, like having a clean topology so we can control how the reflections look in each of our models. We found consistency across the board with our color palettes, typography, and styling guide. We even understood every single segment of our code base so we can optimize every single part as much as possible. And the reason why we did these things isn't only just to make a game that looks great, but we also wanted to make something that was accessible for everyone. It is just as important to us to make a game that is not only enjoyed by different ages, but also by many people of different backgrounds utilizing different devices. So performance has always been the top of our priority. And of course, we also wanted to optimize our game for the older audiences who tend to care more about higher frame rates. Actually, just the other night, I was playtesting with a guy on Frontlines, and he was complaining that he was only getting 200 FPS on his computer. Which, personally, I thought that was pretty good. So because of that, we decided that we wanted to optimize the game for everyone, including our hardcore players. And after observing our older audiences a bit and how they play, and spending time myself playing titles like Call of Duty and Battlefield, we were able to summarize how to create a high-fidelity experience into really 4 key points. One is to create a world that you feel immersed in, as if everything around you starts to disappear. 2 is to create a character system that feels like an extension of yourself, as if it's you, yourself, moving around and doing all the actions without any limitations and having it not feel robotic. 3 is to create the details as if the things around you are also moving in the real world, and that the feelings that you get in the game are starting to come off the screen. And lastly, 4 is to create the illusionary sensation that there's always something new to look forward to, and there's always more to learn. And now I'll be sending it over to Sid for him to explain to you the finer details.
Thank you, Clarence. So, when we released Frontlines, we saw that a lot of mainstream YouTubers were making content about our game. They highlighted realistic graphics, animation, and just generally stuff that they noticed was high fidelity. So I'd like to highlight one of these clips right now.
I'm not lying to you, this game that I'm playing right now is Roblox. I'm actually lost for words.
So this video was made by Jack Frags, who's a YouTuber that makes content for FPS games. And essentially, this was super important to us because it taught us that high fidelity grabs people's attention. That's super key to basically getting the attention of new audiences, right? And it also taught us that high fidelity experiences are very immersive. It makes you feel like you're actually that action character running through the battlefield. So with that being said, which game would you prefer to play? The one on the left or the one on the right? Left? Left? Right? Okay, I have no idea. I heard left, I heard right. But I mean, okay, I gotta say classic Roblox is goated, okay? But we noticed that a lot of older audiences preferred the one on the right. So it wasn't just because of realistic graphics or animation or any of that, but it was also because of the realistic characters. So audiences outside of Roblox know Roblox to be, R15 rigs and this kind of lower poly style, but seeing the realistic characters really helped introduce that to Roblox's image. So essentially, we realized at the development team that all facets of our development need to be high fidelity. So I'd like to kind of highlight how we achieved that in Frontlines. So with our animations, we worked day and night to make sure that we prevented it from being too linear or too robotic. And for example, if an animator was trying to rotate a weapon, we'd make sure that it didn't rotate too fast or try to make it look as natural as possible. Another thing we did was focus on realistic movement and making sure that our third-person animations had a consistent style. So we made sure that for example, the sprinting was aggressive enough and it looked like an action character running through the battlefield. We also made sure to add as many interesting animation details as possible. So for example, our animator for the inspect animation made sure that when you pull out the magazine, it actually checks the spring, and that way it can make sure that there's no jamming or anything. So that actually is really important to new audiences because when they see those little details, they feel very immersed in that world. So the next thing I'd like to highlight is the environment. So this is really important, especially with lighting, because it's one of the first things that new audiences notice. So we wanted to make sure that it felt like you were in a movie or some sort of cinematic experience. We spent days just fine-tuning each and every map. We also worked on creating a detailed environment with several props and adding detailed textures to create that wear and tear sensation. And that way it looked like you were in the real world. As well as that, we also utilized PBR. Thank you so much for giving us PBR, Roblox, because when you walk by a vehicle, you can see the sunlight glinting right off, and it looks just really beautiful. So along with that, sound design, which is my job, I try to make the audio as immersive as possible. So we created systems such as if your enemy is firing in front of you, it'll sound normal. But if they walk behind a wall or a building, it'll actually sound dampened, and that'll emulate kind of the real world. But along with that, we also add a lot of detailed audio. So if you're walking around the map, perhaps, and you walk past a bush, or if you walk past a light bulb, or even an air vent, you'll hear sounds from everything. And that way, you kind of create a 3D soundscape, and it feels like you really are there, and you're hearing that through your ears. So the last thing we utilize is also sound groups. Sound groups are super important to us because it helps us create automated mixing systems, such as if you lose health or have lower health, it'll actually dampen all the gameplay audio, showing you that you need to get to safety. So last but not least, UI and VFX is something that we don't talk about enough, but we spent so much time fine-tuning it. So for example, with the hit markers, we worked really hard to just fine-tune the jiggle so that when you actually hit an enemy, it looks really satisfying. So on top of that, we worked on reactive environmental VFX. So if you fire your weapon at something metallic, for example, you'll actually see sparks fly off, and we worked really hard to even fine-tune those sparks as well. So on top of that, we also worked on creating really feel-good, just reactive UI animation for things like the ammo counter going down, the text jiggles and turns red, notifying you that you need to reload. So say you have all of these things combined, animations, sounds, or everything relating to development, packaged into one product. The question becomes, how do you market that to your new audiences? So this is a really hard question, and obviously we can't guarantee an answer to this, but we'd like to highlight what worked for us. So we utilized Twitter. We created a brand account, and rather than posting the content about Frontlines on there, we decided to actually repost our individual developers' posts about Frontlines, and that way our audience could not only check out our brand, but they could also look at our individual developers' accounts and check out their talent. So along with that, we also utilized TikTok. TikTok's a great way to garner a lot of attention in a really short amount of time. And one of the cool things about it is you don't even need to be a content creator to get a lot of views. We noticed that a lot of people posted content about Frontlines, and maybe they had 300 views per video, but they actually ended up getting millions of views on the Frontlines videos, which is amazing. So one last thing I'd like to highlight is the Discord community. It's a very powerful tool for getting all of your audience together into one spot. So in our Discord server, we have about 26,000 members. But it's really, really useful because it's a great place to relay announcements, updates, and maybe you can even ask your community how you can make your game better. So it's a great way for your community to find other people with similar interests, and maybe even if you have a bot in there where you can check game stats, you can flex on your friends with your KDR a bit. So with all of that in mind, with development and marketing put together, at Frontlines, we had to really think about what did we learn from this whole experience. So with that, I'll pass it right back to Clarence.
Thanks, Sid. So now that you guys know the special sauce in terms of how we build our games and market it, let's just chat a bit in terms of what we learned over the years. And if we were to really put all our learnings into one phrase, is to really to just show that you care. And you can do that by showing your players that you're still interested in improving the game that they spent countless hours playing every single day. You you can even talk to them directly and figure out what they like and what they don't like, not just about the game, but also maybe the community and the studio as a whole. And if you guys are feeling bold, you can even take their crazy ideas into consideration. But showing that you care doesn't just have to stop there. You can show that you care by having a great attention of detail in all your games, or adding Easter eggs, or even having a level of polish that's unseen of in every aspect of your experience. So to put it simply, you just have to make a game that just works. And I know it's easy for me to say here, but in today's day and age, it almost feels like a novelty. So let's just summarize and really think about how we could do that. And going off our first suggestion is to really start by making a game where you feel like you're inside your own creation. And to do that, you have to utilize a great attention to detail into every facet of your development, whether it's textures, sound effects, animations, graphics design, lighting work, or even thinking about the corners of how the buttons look and what happens when the mouse hovers over it, the UI animations overall, and of course the programming, and having an overall package that feels insanely great. And once you guys achieve that, just take a step back and take pride in what you've achieved. You've worked so hard by just crossing over the finish line, so pat yourself in the back and have the confidence to share it to the world through multiple social channels and of course your family and friends. So now just sit back, relax, hopefully for not too long, and just see the fireworks fly. Thank you all for coming to our talk, and thanks for listening. Yeah. But hold up, guys. I know I promised you guys something in the beginning, and there's actually one more thing. And we've really waited a long time to finally be able to show you guys this. And it's the next experience by Maximillian Studios that is at a much higher caliber than anything we've ever done before. So we're super passionate about this one. And we really hope that you guys are just as energized as we are about this. So let's check it out.
Hi, I'm Simona. Get ready for the ride of your life.
Thank you, guys. What do you think?
Awesome.
So, we got a bit of time here, so let's just hang out and ask some questions. So if you guys have anything you want to ask us, do come up to the mic and we'll answer them. Anyone curious?
Hello, I'm Cody, or Chaotic Cody.
How's it going?
So my question here is for Sid. So audio design, I've noticed the audio in Frontlines is fantastic, and you kind of showed us a bit of how you made it, so immersive. What is your workflow like, and what tools do you use outside of Roblox? And could you show what your process is?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question, by the way. So yeah, I do use third-party software. I use Pro Tools and Ableton, which are great ways to kind of get started in that if you want to get started in sound design. But I essentially, so if it's a system, I'll kind of design my own prototype and then test that concept. And for example, the weapon sounds, right? That's a very complex system that we designed. So I started first by creating a concept myself and programming it out. And once we proved that the concept actually worked, we ended up prototyping it in Frontlines. And then after that, I ended up kind of figuring out how to mix those things together. So with Roblox, there are a lot of limitations. And so with my process, I had to figure out how to kind of bypass them. So for example, one of the limitations is sometimes when you trigger sound events, it doesn't actually play like perfectly on time. There's a delay. So, our systems have to compensate for that. So I'll usually come up with a system, and once all that's down, I'll start sound designing the thing itself. So weapon sounds actually took a really long time. I had to study kind of every little detail and figure out how we can make it as immersive as possible. So with each weapon sound, or each weapon, there's actually a set of 50 different sounds just for the firing noise, depending on. So it actually incorporates whether you're indoors or outdoors in a hallway. Maybe it looks at the location where you are. So I basically just work on sound designing those things, so taking actual recordings and processing them, and then putting them in the game. And that's usually how sound design goes for us.
Awesome. And one more thing. Do you ever go and get like live references, for example, for the guns? You ever go to a shooting range and
So I didn't go. So funny story. I'm not really that big into weapons, but I had to study a lot. So there were people in our community who helped out a lot with this, actually. So some of them owned weapons, and they sent me actual recordings of them. So I would actually study them for a long time and kind of figure out how I can replicate that experience. So I really looked at that and those references and kind of studied it and made sure I could replicate that in our game. So
Awesome. That's another great way to leverage your community too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, our community is just amazing. And I know some of you guys are here. I've seen you here, so thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Hello. My voice is kind of gone, but my name's Luis, and my only question is, what were the challenges y'all came across when you were building your community? Because I'm sure, making the Discord, making the socials, doing that community management, and especially as it scales up, as the game gets more popular, what were the challenges y'all came across?
That's a really great question, actually. So when we started Operation Scorpion, our first project, there was about 500 members or so around that time. And as Frontlines came in, we saw the numbers grow exponentially. So for us, we had to figure out how to kind of control that. So we basically set out a bunch of guidelines for moderators and things like that. We also separated game moderators along with Discord moderators. And with our Discord moderators, we gave them systems where they could easily, ban players or users who weren't behaving very well. And also, we set out guidelines and exact processes for them to follow. Also, we have, so if someone's temporarily banned for, say, a week, we have it set where they can, there's essentially rules as to how long someone's banned, or we have set out situations for which they can be banned. So it's just a lot of detail work, just writing out guidelines, working with your moderators, and seeing how you can kind of organize all that chaos of, thousands and thousands of members into fitting into that sort of system. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, it's really it's kind of like the idea of gamification too, right? When we first started the community, it was really hard for us to get players engaged or people engaged within the Discord server because all we had was just a general chat. And that's all they could talk in. And as time grew on, we realized that adding things like music sessions and play sessions really helped a lot. People were more engaged and they felt like they were part of our Discord community a lot more. So I'd say adding in little channels where they can show off themselves, maybe having a dog showing channel where they can post their dogs and so on really helps a lot.
Okay. Well, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Drake Rose. I go by Drake Rose on Roblox platform. So my question is, Frontlines is a really high fidelity game. And mobile is a large market share on Roblox. With this kind of fidelity, how are you making sure that you're optimizing your experience for mobile?
That's a really good question. And I think the biggest thing is going back to kind of what I said, is that if you have the proper techniques, and it's like developing a game in the 90s, right? When the hardware wasn't really up to date just yet. You really have to have the proper techniques and get the cleanest topology and understanding every segment of your game, whether it's how many triangles we have in each model to how the code segments run and how they perform. And really understanding that and optimizing every single part really helps with the mobile aspect. But of course, with the racing game, it's not just going to be in a small map anymore. We're going to have a large open world with multiple skyscrapers and buildings. And our team is building a custom LOD system to support that, and we're going to have a mobile-friendly version.
Sweet, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Hi, my username is JustDev on the Roblox platform. I actually have a question about your racing game. My question, I don't know if you can answer it, but how do you get clean engine audio? Like, do you get dyno samples? Or like, I know that's a really challenging for games like Forza, and it's extremely difficult. So I'm kind of curious what the secret sauce is going to be.
So there's two things. Obviously, so we haven't actually started fully, right? But we want to do two things. We do want to record some of our own cars, especially the special ones, live. So we're going to rig up the cars, mic them up, get every single angle we can possibly get, and record those and implement them using our car audio system. But along with that, for the cars we can't get, you're right, dynos, right? So there's a whole car community out there who records these for fun. And there's a lot of helpful assets out there. If we're looking for those underground street cars, there's a lot of recordings using those specific engines and things. So using tools like Isotope's RX10 and things, we can kind of separate those out and help create detailed audio for that. So honestly, it might not be perfect, but that's like how we can get as close as possible to creating that really immersive audio experience with driving a car.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Hey guys, so this is kind of a question for each of you. Just was one interesting, why do you develop? So like some people do it because they want to make something cool. Some people want to do it because they find the game they're making fun. So yeah, just wondering.
You want to go first?
You go first.
Cool. That's a good question. And I think it's really just going back and thinking about all the things that I'm inspired by. I consume a lot of art, whether it's reading a book, watching a movie, going to a stadium show, and I watch all these artists kind of like almost like put their life's work and passion into what they do. And sometimes I'm like in a concert, I'm just sitting there and they're doing such a crazy job creating an experience that I'm just like, they're like, I want to do exactly that, but in video games. And so hopefully that answers your question. It's really, I want to create an experience for people.
For me, so yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar in the way, like, I just love creating really new, innovative things, like the weapon system for Frontlines. I spent, I think, a year on just refining it over time, and for me, developing is just something where I can kind of creatively express what I'm thinking. So even with sounds, and I also do music, which I didn't really highlight in this presentation. It's a great way where I can, it's unrestricted creativity for me, and thanks to Clarence, of course, I can do that. But it's a great way to just kind of, when you watch movies and things, like I recently just watched Oppenheimer, right? And just seeing the art and like the music and stuff, I kind of want to recreate that feeling in our games and make other people really enjoy it. And I do also for the community. I mean, seeing people comment on my music and my sounds and all that stuff really, really means a lot to me every time I see those things. So I just appreciate making really cool stuff for people.
Cool. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. My name is Sandre, and I have a question. So when you go high fidelity, there is of course the CPU usage and rendering. But what kind of steps do you do for the networking? Because that is a very big part of Roblox, since everything is downloaded. And when you go high fidelity, also the size of the game goes exponentially up. What are some steps that you guys are taking to deal with, like how to deal with networks and poor Wi-Fi connections, etc.?
Yeah, of course. So, none of us are the engineers of the team, so we can't really give you the most detailed answer that you'd probably like. But just from our talks and having our weekly meetings with the racing team, we have a really talented racing engineer actually. His name's Myro. And when he's not working on car games, he's actually working on his car, changing out the tires and stuff. And I had countless talks with him in terms of like the networking, because especially in a racing game, you want it to be as smooth as possible, right? Especially when like two cars are going side by side, they're trying to go into the finish line. We want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. And so we're actually creating our whole custom networking model. They're going to do a server authoritative model where we have complete control over the physics and where the positions of each car is. And on top of that, in terms of scale, it's really just like the LOD and just making sure everything's smooth far away and also within it.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, I'm Hertz, 144 Hertz.
Hey,
It's good to see you guys.
this guy actually worked for us on Operation Scorpion, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so for you guys' new racing game, I gotta say the trailer looks so impressive. It is a beautiful looking game. How do you guys plan to accomplish such amazing fidelity on such a large open world map? I imagine something like streaming. Do you have custom LOD? What's your secret sauce there?
It's really having a really amazing team. It's the people and the talent that's with us. For our environments, we're going to have over 15 people just working on the city. And the way that we structure our team is we have a very specialized group of people. So there is just one person that's just creating skyscrapers. There's another person that's just creating small houses. And so having them work together and really discuss and having a great set of talent is really going to help with that. And of course, on the technology side, it's really just the custom streaming and so on. And really, I just like to thank, Jad and Ed and Matt over there with the Game Fund for us. Without them, we wouldn't have the resources to build this amazing team that we have for you guys to have the craziest experience with our racing game. So
We do love Game Fund. All right, thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, if there isn't anyone else that wants to ask a question, thank you all for coming. And if anything, we'll hang out with you guys outside.
Of course.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.